The title is Using Google Slides to Support Writing in Online or Hybrid Classrooms, and our presenter is Julia Christmas. I'll just hand it over to you, Julia. Thank you.
Thank you so much. So I'm going to share my screen and just get started. It'll take just 1 second and hold on. Things were in the way. It'll take just a second. Okay. There we go. Okay. So I am going to be talking about using Google Slides to support writing. And mostly for me, I do want to share what I did and what that looks like, or what it looked like. But this whole, like how I got to this place and this particular investigation, I really want to talk about as well. So please bear with me. I am going to do these 4 things. What I want to focus on really for this presentation is twofold. First, I want to give you some insight and explain how and why I got to this point. And this, like I said, this particular investigation in my pedagogy. And second, I want to show you how to use, or how I used, Google Slides to support academic writing as a mediation or intervention. So I'm going to start with a bit of background about the situation that led to this presentation, and then I'm going to give you some theory that supported it, and I'll follow that. Hold on, things are getting out of control. Just a second. The automatic timer is on. It is, I'm going to stop sharing just a second. It is, okay. Wait, oh no. Okay. So I'm going to share like this for just a second because the timer seems to be on and I don't want it to do that. So one more time, sorry about that. I'm going to finally talk a little bit about the next directions that I want to take. Okay, so let me get started on the slides and on the journey that brought me here. So here we go. The background. So I teach, the classroom teaching that is the focus of this presentation was with freshmen. And it was this first semester of this year. And they're, like it says, CEFR B1, B2 occasionally, and they're CLIL-based academic English classes. And the course goals include vocabulary, some focus on forms, grammar, and lots of academic writing and presentation skills. But before we even began my semester at a new school, after moving back from the United States, COVID hit and we were suddenly holding classes fully online. Now we're back to face-to-face. And I will touch on how my online semester has transferred back into the classroom, back into the brick and mortar style classroom. But getting back to the point, the shift online made me ask myself some really, really good big questions. So many of those questions were related to some time that I spent recently in an L1 setting. I was working at a high school where a good percentage of students go to college. However, it was a designated Title I school, and that means there's a large percentage of students who are living near or below the poverty line, and many of them belong to families that have never had a member attend college. Part of my mission at that school was, as an English teacher, to help them prepare for college. Now their L1 was mostly English, and it's kind of complicated. But in spite of that L1 status, there was a lot of things, there were a lot of things about academic writing that make it a foreign genre. with a foreign culture of language and conventions. And so in that situation, for me as a teacher, there were a lot of successes and a lot of failures, even though it was an L1 setting. So again, getting back to talking about those big questions, I began thinking a lot about what had led to my successes in that L1 setting. I realized that part of the success was due to intervention, these mediations that I had done in the writing process, like using peer collaboration. But I had done those things before, you know, the usual things that we all do. We do peer editing, cooperative learning techniques, you know, brainstorming and all those things. And it had been successful in some cases, but that alone had not made a huge difference with student ability to follow the conventions of academic writing, which is really what I wanted them to learn to do. So I knew that something else was at work, and I thought about the setting again, and I thought, maybe it was not just pure collaboration or all the little things that I do, it was also technology. Okay, so I was convinced that the thing that made technology work, that the greater success, especially in one particular L1 class, was due to intervention, mediation in the writing process through collaboration and using technology to give them opportunities for noticing. And yes, it's that basic, well-known theory. Many years ago, Schmidt hypothesized that the things that need to be noticed, for them, things need to be noticed for them to sink in and to stick and get used. Key and Lapkin added to this notion, and they maintain that the quality of noticing is essential. And Hanaoka suggests that output and noticing are positively linked. And that was part of all those three things helped me think about how technology is related to noticing. So moving on, these two main principles have always been my guide as a teacher. Language is co-constructed and scaffolding is essential. And I think that's really basic, that everyone knows and does that, but how do we have them co-construct the language? How do we scaffold them? What are the best ways? So lack of experience and lack of knowledge regarding the genre, I'm going to emphasize that word, of academic writing specifically, and the incomprehensible nature of many of the features and conventions of academic writing are major barriers for L1 and L2 learners alike. So all of those red highlighted things are things that the learners lack. And that my learners were lacking. So I thought, okay, I need to help scaffold this in some way. So those were part of my big questions. The next aha moment that came to me was about visibility. And this is part of noticing. So it's not just helping them notice in a small way. It's really making things visible for our L2 learners. And these are some basics of making writing more noticeable. And I'm going to go back. These are the really basics, the red ones. And then Hyland takes it to a whole new level. So he takes noticing to another level with L2 writing and refers to it as visibility. And I'll explain that further in a minute. But it really, really struck me that I need to make it visible, and using technology helped in my L1 situation, make it visible, and that's why it was successful. I know that there were other factors involved, motivation. These were, in the L1 situation, these were not really motivated students. The only thing they were motivated to graduate, but they were not really motivated in many other ways, but still they were able to do this. And they told me it had never made sense before, but doing it the way that we did made sense. And so they felt capable. They felt like they were able to use those conventions of academic writing and understand how to use them, along with the paraphrasing and summarizing all the things that we need to do. So for my online classes, because of the technology available, I wanted to build on that during our online semester. So moving on to look at the methodology of my adventure, my investigation. I had two groups. And first, let's look at the writing was initially scaffolded and made visible by giving students time to work together and direct instruction. And then I did this thing using color-coded exemplars, and I really want to talk about that in a few minutes. And then I gave them plenty of opportunities to reflect and do model writing and peer writing, and they could focus on their own work and other students' work, but lots of models. And I think that they were really effective. But I want to talk about the colors in just a minute. That's what the basis of this will be. So I had two groups, a limited control group, and we used the colors without explanation. And I'll explain what the colors are in just a minute. Just normal explanations, normal ways of teaching online, of course. Students were asked to paraphrase, cite, quote, introduce topics, and interpret and conclude. And then the other group, the group that, with the intervention, with the mediation, I used colors with them to emphasize and make the concepts visible in terms of the what and the when and the why of academic writing. Okay, so I used in both classes, I used paired and group writing challenges. I used in the L1, we were using Google Classroom, but for my online semester, last semester, we used Google Slides, and that was the main technology that we used was Google Slides. And I'm going to show you some examples in just a moment. So I did a lot of pre-teaching of the conventions. And let me show you really quickly what some of the examples were. So I have them here. So let me just give you, okay, so this is what the students were doing. We were on Zoom, and I had the students in breakout rooms, and it was random because at that time we couldn't let them choose their own breakout rooms, and I didn't want to spend the time making breakout rooms. Students were joining with emails other than their university. It was very complicated. So they just were thrown into rooms with people that they didn't even know. We took a while to get used to each other. And what would happen was I would be in the main room, and the students would be in the breakout rooms working together, 3 or 4 students per room. And I would give them a mission, and I'll show you a mission in just a minute. Before we got to this point, I taught them, if you can see on the left-hand side, these are the colors. So there was a box, and the green was introduce the text and the topic and the author. This light blue there were verbs that they had to use to refer to the author's idea, like maintain and explain, highlight, those verbs that we use to show that it's the author's idea and not your idea. The wild blue is the quote or the summary or the paraphrase. Then the citation, explanation, interpretation, and then using words of contrast. So all of that stuff I pre-taught, and I used the colors for the focus group very intensely. We said, okay, this is what this is, and I gave them lots of spoken and written models about what these colors mean and what it looks like. And I'll show you in just a second an example. For the other group, not so much. I just gave them the colors were there, but I didn't have them use them, or I didn't emphasize them. Okay, so let me go back to the link and I'll show you what. So the students would be in their breakout rooms. They would be following the steps, and let me just switch back to 8. Okay, and give you a sample. I'm going to stop sharing for just 1 second, and I'll share again because then I can share the sample. Just a second. Okay. All right, ready to go. Thank you for your patience. Okay, so this is the mission that I would give them. The students learned how to follow the steps, and then they were, for homework, it was a flipped classroom. So they were given videos to watch from YouTube, or lectures that I had done and uploaded to YouTube, or reading texts. And this was the beginning of writing about paragraphs about comparing 2 countries, one a high development country, and comparing a high development country and a low development country. And so this is what the students produced. So there were 4 students in this group, and they worked together. And they created 3 paragraphs, an introduction paragraph, and then they used the colors to show me that they knew what these features do and features did. And when they made mistakes, I was here in the main breakout room, and I would type on the slides while they worked. So I didn't visit the individual breakout rooms very much unless the students were not producing any work at all. I would give them feedback on the slides in either the comments or in via a text box. And the students got very, very much used to that. They would, when they had addressed some issue, they would erase the text box. So it worked very, very well. Another example is, this was an activity about how to talk about graphs. And so it was mixed with a presentation, but I wanted them to show me that they knew how to talk about a graph, and show me that it wasn't, what ideas were not theirs, and use the features of academic presentations as well. So I gave them a model with all the information, and then they worked. They each group, each team had its own graph that they had to talk about. And so they had to show me, and these were first-year students, first-year university students. I was very, very impressed with their ability to do this work together on Zoom. They had never, we'd never used Zoom before. There were so many things that were just outrageously new for them. And yet they were able to be resilient and do these things. Let me get back to my final slides of my presentation. I'm fighting with PowerPoint. Okay, there we go. Okay, let me share one more time. And here we go. So those were the examples. We had so the template for the colors was 5 things, basically: introduction to the topic and text, and perhaps the author, using verbs that introduce the author's ideas, quoting, paraphrasing, citing, explaining, interpreting, concluding, and then words of addition. So they had lots of practice with this, and these are the results. So the post-testing was done in 2 ways. There was kind of a metacognitive multiple choice that was gave them bad examples or good examples, and that was using Google Forms. And then they had to do a paragraph and an essay using the conventions of the colors. They did not have to put the colors in because you cannot do it very well in Word, but some of them did their final or their final draft, or sorry, the first drafts in Google Docs, and they colored everything because they wanted to show me that they could do it. It was really funny. And then I told them in their final drafts that they did not need to use the colors. The cumulative of the post-tests for Group A, the limited group, so they did not do as well as Group B, which was kind of what I thought would happen. So what I'm going to do next, this semester, I've been using the colors a little bit without a lot of emphasis, just to continue seeing what happens when I don't. And the initial academic writing test results are showing similar results with Group A from last. So I'm also using Padlet this semester that I had not used before. So you cannot use the colors with Padlet as well. But next semester, I have the same classes, and I plan to redo the investigation and see if it really, really does get me anywhere. And I want to write about it. And I really appreciate your listening and your patience with the technology. I'm sure that it was a bit confusing, for which I apologize. So that is what I did in a nutshell. And I really think that there was a lot of potential using those slides. I was so excited when I saw the students producing such amazing work for first years. Like that had never happened before. And I did notice that the students with the innovation with the colors did write better. They were better. They seemed to understand what was going on a lot better than the students that I didn't emphasize it as well, or in previous years when I had not used it. But that Google Slides was a game changer. Right now in the classroom, I make my students bring their laptops. And so every class, I'm not using any paper at all. And the students are using Padlet or Google Slides consistently in groups again. And I know that they're seeing each other's work, and it seems to be the visibility seems to be happening. So thank you again for your patience. If you have any questions, I'm happy to entertain. Thank you. And if you don't, fine.
Thank you so much, Julia. It does look like you do have a question. I just wanted to say, kind of a recap or just a follow-up. I think your presentation was really great. I think it's incredible what you were doing. I also use Google Slides in very similar ways. So that was kind of affirming. I'm like, yeah, I'm not the only one who does this. And that color coding, I've also tried to do it a little bit in my class as well, not on Google Slides, but in like online discussions. And so I think it helped my students a lot doing the color coding and knowing what those colors meant. I think it worked for my students as well. So I think it's really awesome that you actually went through and actually did a Group A, Group B did a proper study. So that's awesome. Yeah.
There is one, Rosemary, I'm sorry, using, Aisha, question though, like not being able to, Word doesn't have as many colors. And when you use the highlighting, the darker colors actually make it impossible to read what was written underneath them. And so that was the beauty of Google Slides, is that those colors don't really interfere with what the students have written. And so it makes it really easy to check. So that was a point where the students were quite frustrated when they went back, like the ones who wanted to use it and didn't know how to use Google Slides because they didn't have a Google Gmail account. So I was like, just get Gmail, just do it. And so they began using those features instead. Yes. So I can do two things. I don't mind sharing my, I can't because I'm not host. So Rachel, if you just want to put my PowerPoint in the latest version, you can stick it in the chat.
Oh, okay.
And people can download it from there. And the links, those are, anyone can view, those are public links. It's the ones to, all the personal information has been removed from them. So go ahead and have a look. So that was Julian wanted to know if they were available. Yeah, so a universal color coding chart, that would be awesome. I kind of want to like use mine and I don't know, copyright it or something. There are other people who have used colors, they said too, you know, I just, it just really worked well, I thought. So yeah, so Rachel has put the slides in, and those links to the student samples are embedded in the slides. So you can go ahead and Hyland, go to Hyland. He's your man. I was so impressed with him. If there are no other questions, great. And I really appreciate everyone, your patience and your listening to me just talk. It was a great chance. I really wanted to share it. I thought that it has some merit. So, and if you have questions, go ahead. You can later, if something comes, feel free to write to me. And
yeah, you guys can also, I think I've enabled the, messaging individual participants privately. So I think you should be able to send questions directly to Julia through the chat if you would like to. But it looks like a lot of really great feedback for you, Julia. Yeah, it was a very wonderful presentation. Thank you.